Hello, farm ladies. Well, I'm incredibly excited because I am recording this video from the playhouse. And the playhouse is on the farm, which started this whole crazy farm lady yoga thing. So I'm pretty jazzed about it. Today's video is going to be on some hip openers that you can use. And the hip openers that I like to do are incorporated into your sun salutations. So you can do a few sun salutations to warm up, and then you get into these hip openers. So this first video is just going to be a little bit of instruction, a little bit of form, and then I'll do another one where we'll flow through it a little more. So let's just pretend that we have gone through our sun salutations. We're ending up in our plank, and we're going to go through our vinyasa. So we're going through a little chaturanga, up dog, and down dog. From the down dog, this is where you're going to start some of your hip openers. So let's take the right leg forward first, and you want to step it all the way up between your hands. If it doesn't make it, you know the drill. If you get about halfway, just grab a hold of your ankle and help it up. Left knee is going to go down. Now what we're working on stretching is the left hip. So the way to make this deeper is to pull that left knee back more. Same thing, if you want to make it a little less intense, you pull that left knee in a little more. So you're going to find the stretch that's working for you. And you start out just with a nice passive, deep breaths. Let that left hip just sink down towards the floor. And one important thing that you want to keep in mind is that right knee needs to be over your right ankle. So this is going to be a nice strong base, nice bit of stability. Same thing with your hands, nice bit of stability so that you can control how deeply and how quickly into this stretch you are going to get, because this one can be really intense. So you're just going to stay here for a sec, just nice deep breaths. And then from here, we can do a couple of different things to make this a little deeper, a little more intense, or to just change it up a little bit. And one of the things I like to do is to go from this passive stretch into a slightly more active stretch. And the way to do that is to turn your toes under on that left foot. Now here's the key to this. You're going to keep your hips exactly where they are. They're going to want to come up when you do this, but keep them where they are. You're just going to press your heel back. Your knee may or may not come up off the floor. What you're doing, though, is by pressing your heel back, you're activating your quads, and that is going to change the stretch slightly. And then you hold that for a little bit, and then you release it down. And you might be able to sink a little deeper after that. Another thing you can do to increase the stretch is to bring yourself up a little bit. So you can use that left leg or that right leg and press your hands into it. So instead of pressing that heel back, what we're doing is we're lifting the chest up. Now here's the thing that is really important when you're doing these hip openers. It's really easy, especially if your hips are tight. If this right hip is tight, it's easy to lift your chest but keep your rib cage kind of pressed down into your hip, into the top of that right leg. If you do that, you're not actually deepening the stretch. In order to deepen the stretch for your left leg, you've got to lift your chest up. You've got to lift your rib cage up and think of tucking your tailbone under. So that's where you're going to get a little bit of glute strength in here. Squeeze your glutes to think of pushing that left hip forward as you lift your chest. That will deepen the stretch. So that's another option. If you really want to get crazy, you can combine these two, turn your toes under, press that heel back, and lift your chest. That's pretty intense, and it involves a little bit more balance. So that's a special occasion hip stretch. Another thing that you can do in your hip stretches is bring your hands to the inside of your front foot. and bring your elbows down. Now this is less about the deep stretch for your left hip, less about opening up the left hip, a little more about getting some deep flexion in that right hip. And depending upon how you're built, this may or may not work for you. And I mean how you're built on a skeletal level. You can't change your bones. So depending upon how your pelvis is structured, this just may simply not be possible. So just to give you a different angle, what I'm doing here, my hands are inside my front foot, and I'm bringing my elbows down, and you can see this right knee. If you want to, another little thing you can do is kind of wing it out, rolling onto the outside edge of that front foot. So that's another option, just to kind of get into that front hip, nice deep flexion there. Whenever you're coming out of this series of stretch, you always want to move slowly on that left hip, or whichever hip you've been stretching, because that's an intense stretch. So if we were incorporating this into our sun salutation, you'd pull back, take a nice deep breath in, go back into your plank, go back through your vinyasa, back to your down dog, and then it would be time for your left foot to come forward, all the way up between your hands, or, halfway up and help it. Starting with that passive stretch. So you're going to see this from a slightly different angle here. And again, you can pull that knee back as far as you want. And then it's all about just taking nice deep breaths. You inhale, and as you inhale, if you let your abdomen expand, that's actually going to deepen the stretch just by opening things up across the front of your body. So a nice deep breath in, feel that expand, and then as you exhale, just release your muscles and just think of that right hip dipping down towards the floor, just getting a little heavier and falling down towards the floor. And then you can make it more intense, of course, by pressing that heel back. But remember, when you press your heel back, don't also lift your hips, because that's not going to deepen the stretch. You have to keep your hips low and press your heel back. So it's a different animal. Hello. And then you can release that down and then relax back into that passive stretch. And then again, you can walk your foot out to the side, and if you like, bring your elbows down, let that knee kind of swing out to the side if that feels good. And here's the other thing, we're all just a little bit asymmetrical. So one side might feel really good to do this and let that knee swing out and all that good stuff. And the other side, maybe not so much. It's all good. Listen to your body. Meet yourself where you are. And of course, there's that super intense, leaving your knee on the floor, lifting your chest. And remember, in order to feel like you're actually increasing the stretch, you got to get that rib cage up. And the other thing, this is the same kind of thing as pressing your heel back. It's not this, because that doesn't change this angle here. It's this. So we're creating a deeper kind of bow shape from your knee to your shoulder across the front of your body. That's what's going to increase the stretch for your hip. And of course, when you're coming out of this, go easy, go slow, and then you would go back into your plank, go back through your vinyasa, and you could do that whole series again if you wanted on each side, or just step your feet forward and finish your sun salutation. So in the next video, what I'll do is I'll flow that all together so you can make it part of your class.